Imagine standing at the edge of the world, snow biting your skin, lost, broken, and alone, but then discovering a hidden cave carved with words older than memory. Words you can't even read, yet your heart trembles. What if those ancient words change your entire life? This isn't just a story of conquering mountains. It's a story of conquering the emptiness within. Watch how a mountain trekker found the truth he didn't even know he was searching for, and how one moment of surrender led him to the greatest summit, love for Islam. Don't miss it, only on Deen in Minute. Whispers of the Summit, a mountain trekker's journey to Islam. The wind bit into his skin, sharp as broken glass, but Daniel Knox didn't slow his pace. The narrow ridge ahead curved like a sleeping dragon's spine, white-capped and unforgiving. Somewhere below, the clouds churned, hiding the depths that had taken countless souls. For most, this climb would be about conquest, adrenaline, or fame. But for Daniel, it was something else. Though he could barely admit it to himself, he was searching for something that had gnawed at the edges of his mind for years, a question without a name. Daniel had always been a man of mountains. Born in a small Scottish town, he had climbed hills before he could spell their names. By his 20s, his name had started appearing in adventure magazines. He was known not only for summiting the toughest peaks, but for doing it solo, with minimal gear and stubborn resolve. Yet with every summit, the emptiness seemed to deepen rather than fade. The higher he climbed, the more he felt a hollow ache inside. This time, Daniel had come to the Karakoram Range, chasing a rumor whispered by a fellow climber, that beyond the known trails, past an unmarked valley, there stood a peak untouched by maps and men. Local shepherds spoke of it only in hushed tones, calling it Jabal al-Sur, the mountain of secret, and Daniel, driven by curiosity and something he couldn't name, had set out alone to find it. The first days of his trek were filled with cold winds and thin air. Glaciers loomed like frozen rivers, groaning underfoot. Yet Daniel pressed on, fueled by stubbornness and an inner voice that whispered, "Keep going. There's something waiting." At night, he slept under a dome of stars so brilliant they felt close enough to touch, but their beauty only deepened his loneliness. On the fifth day, the landscape changed. Daniel found himself in a valley silent as a forgotten prayer. Rocks, shaped by centuries of wind, stood like ancient sentinels. Here, something shifted inside him, a sense of being watched, not by eyes of flesh, but by the unseen. The next morning, mist coiled around his camp. Shapes seemed to dance in the fog. Arches, domes, and crumbling walls, as if a forgotten civilization lay buried beneath ice and stone. Drawn by an instinct stronger than reason, Daniel followed a half-frozen stream that glimmered with an unnatural light. The stream led him to a cave hidden behind a curtain of ice. His breath caught. On the stone above the entrance, ancient words were carved, their script flowing and beautiful, unlike anything he had seen. He traced the grooves with trembling fingers, feeling the weight of centuries. Inside, the cave opened into a chamber lit by shafts of pale light. On the walls, there were more inscriptions, half hidden by moss and age. As Daniel approached, his eyes caught a phrase repeated again and again, written in the elegant script, La ilaha illallah, though he did not know its meaning. Yet the words stirred something deep inside him, as if they spoke to a part of him long asleep. He sat for hours, staring at those words, until exhaustion claimed him. That night, Daniel dreamed of a desert sky, of men wrapped in white robes standing shoulder to shoulder, whispering words he didn't understand, but that felt achingly familiar. He saw an ancient city of clay and gold, and heard a voice reciting words that made his heart tremble. The next morning, Daniel woke with tears on his face. For the first time in years, the ache inside felt like it might be healing. He could not explain why. All he knew was that he had to know what those words meant. Packing his gear, he made his way down the valley, but a sudden storm caught him. Snow fell like a living wall, wind screaming so fiercely it seemed to tear at his soul. Hours turned into a blur of white, and Daniel lost the trail. His compass spun uselessly. At dusk, with darkness crawling over the snow, he stumbled, falling into a hidden crevasse. Pain exploded through his leg. He lay half-buried, icy water seeping into his clothes. Panic surged, but strangely, so did something else, a memory of the cave, of those words carved in stone. He whispered them, though he did not know what they meant. La ilaha illallah. Over and over, the words became his heartbeat. As darkness swallowed the world, Daniel thought of his life. The summits conquered, the fame gained, and the emptiness that had always returned. Now, trapped and broken, all that seemed so small. His breath misted in the cold, growing fainter. And as consciousness slipped away, he whispered, "If there is something, someone beyond this, let me find you." Daniel awoke to the pale light of dawn and the soft sound of a voice. A figure knelt beside him, a shepherd in rough wool, eyes kind but sharp with worry. The man spoke words Daniel couldn't understand, then pulled him from the crevasse with surprising strength. He splinted Daniel's leg, then built a fire, speaking softly in the same gentle tone. Over the next days, the shepherd, whose name was Ahmed, led Daniel to a small home built from stone and earth, warmed by a crackling fire. Ahmed had little, but shared everything: warm soup, soft bread, and a smile that eased Daniel's pain more than any medicine. Through broken English and gestures, Daniel learned that Ahmed was a Muslim. At night, Daniel watched Ahmed spread a simple mat, face a direction Daniel did not know, and whisper words with deep humility. There was no audience, no ritual for show, only sincerity so profound it moved Daniel to tears. One night, unable to keep his curiosity inside, Daniel pointed at the prayer mat and asked, "What are you saying?" Ahmed's eyes lit with gentle surprise. "I speak to Allah," he said. "I say there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger." The words struck Daniel like thunder. He remembered the cave, the carved words, La ilaha illallah. Trembling, he wrote the words in the dirt, copying what he had seen. Ahmed's face softened into a smile of deep understanding. "Yes," he said, voice reverent, "that is the truth of Islam." Daniel felt his heart beat faster, as if something buried under years of doubt and pride was waking. "What does it mean?" he asked. Ahmed spoke softly, choosing words carefully. "It means there is nothing worthy of worship except Allah, the one who made the mountains and the stars, and Muhammad is his last messenger." Daniel lay awake all night, replaying those words. His mind resisted, the rational part arguing, questioning, but something deeper, older than thought, simply whispered, "This is what you were searching for." Days passed. Daniel watched Ahmed pray, seeing the peace that settled over his face afterward. Once, Ahmed recited words from a small, worn book. Though Daniel did not understand, the sound moved him like music older than the mountains. When Ahmed explained it was Quran, Daniel felt awe, a text unchanged, preserved as it was revealed. One evening, as the wind howled outside, Daniel spoke, voice low, "All my life, I climbed mountains, but the summit never satisfied me." "Why?" Ahmed looked at him with quiet compassion. "Because you are climbing for the world. Your soul longs for its creator." Those words pierced Daniel deeper than any blade. Tears filled his eyes, hot and unexpected. "How do I find him?" Ahmed placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Say with your heart, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Believe it, and Allah will bring you closer than you can imagine." Daniel hesitated, the weight of it crushing. But in that silence, he saw every summit he had stood upon, every moment of awe, every unanswered question, and he realized all pointed to this. With tears, voice breaking, he whispered, "Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah." The room felt suddenly alive, as if something unseen had opened. Daniel felt warmth flood through him, a peace so deep it scared him. The ache inside that had haunted him for years eased, replaced by something quiet and steadfast. Ahmed's eyes shone. "Alhamdulillah," he whispered, embracing him. "Now your real journey begins." When spring thawed the passes, Ahmed led Daniel to the nearest village. News of the foreigner who had embraced Islam spread quickly. The villagers welcomed him not as a stranger, but as a brother. In the small mosque, Daniel prayed beside them. Awkward at first, but with every prayer, something inside settled deeper. One day, a traveling scholar visited the village. Seeing Daniel's hunger to learn, he gifted him an English Quran. Alone at night, Daniel read verse after verse, feeling as though it spoke directly to him. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth are signs for people of understanding. Quran 3:190. Daniel realized that every sunrise over a ridge, every star-filled sky, had been calling him all along. He had not been alone on those mountains. Allah had always been with him, waiting for Daniel to look beyond stone and snow. Months turned into years. Daniel healed, grew stronger. He stayed in Pakistan, teaching climbing to local youth, but his greatest passion became studying Islam. He learned Arabic slowly, the letters strange but beautiful under his pen. When he recited Quran himself for the first time, tears ran down his face, the same words that had echoed in that hidden cave. Sometimes he would return to Jabal al-Sur, sitting by the cave's mouth, whispering Dhikr into the thin air. The cave had become his mirab, the mountain his silent teacher. In the wind that rushed over the ridges, Daniel heard not emptiness, but the words, La ilaha illallah. He never found out who carved the words in stone, or how they had survived the centuries. But it didn't matter. Their message was timeless. Islam had filled the emptiness that neither fame nor summits could touch. Daniel realized that the greatest climb was not to a peak of rock and snow, but to sincerity, humility, and love for the one beyond all horizons. Years later, a young trekker, hearing the legend of a foreigner who had converted to Islam after discovering a hidden cave, sought Daniel out. Standing before the graying man whose eyes still sparkled with wonder, the youth asked, "Was it really the mountain that changed you?" Daniel smiled softly, gaze turning to the far peaks. "No," he said, voice low, "it wasn't the mountain. It was what the mountain showed me, that every summit, every silence points to Allah. And in that, I found a love that made me whole." The wind stirred, carrying away his words, mingling them with the eternal silence of the mountains. And Daniel Knox, once a lonely climber, now stood not as a man seeking the next summit, but as a servant of the one whose signs are written across sky, stone, and every searching heart. Did this story touch your heart? Subscribe to Deen in Minute for more emotional, mysterious, and inspiring Islamic stories that bring you closer to faith. Don't forget to like, share, and comment what part moved you the most. Let's spread the beauty of Islam together.